Hey everyone, welcome to a unique edition of Bible Talk. Bible Talk is the place where we connect the Bible and everyday life. I'm usually standing over there at my computer with my guest somewhere around the world, but Scott Yamamura is a buddy of mine. We have known each other for 25 years, probably close, 20, something like that.
I'll say,
and maybe a little bit longer.
Could be longer.
But Scott, you just come out with a brand new book called Financial Epiphany. Yes. There's so much that went into that as far as what you felt God leading you to, calling to share a message, how you went about writing it and sharing it and producing it. And I mean, it's just so awesome to have you here in my office in 3D. I know it's not 3D to them, but it's 3D to me.
We're here.
We're not going to go through every detail of the book. The book is a financial book. It's a fantastic book. I've read the whole thing before it ever got into the print. We're going to be doing a little unboxing. Here's the cool thing. You get to see Scott hold his first book for the first time. He's never ever done it. This is a sealed package right here. It is not. We did not pre-plan this or practice this. And so, as somebody who has written and held books, when there's just something about it, and so the chance to get to do this with you is awesome. For your first book to hold the first copy in your hand, awesome. So Scott, tell people a little bit about your background, because you certainly do not have the traditional route of most people who've written a book on finances.
Sure thing. I mean, just speaking from the faith perspective, I've always seen it as God, people, and then something in between, the bridge, as we sometimes refer to it as. When I was younger, teenagers, 20-some years old, it was actually skateboarding ministry. Sports is what brought God and people together. Yeah. Later on, took that out, put in videography and creativity. So videography, photography, and it brought people together. And within that, we could even use those skills to serve ministries and do photography, do videography for ministries that needed that to get their message out. Take out the video and the photo, put in personal finance. Yeah. That's the bridge. So many of us need help or look for help or want to connect or want to learn personal finances. We don't know where to go. Connecting with each other and doing it in community is a wonderful way to learn, especially if there's, the biblical undertones with how to do finances, how to steward finances right there. So that's part of the story. I always thought as God, people, and you can plug anything in the blank.
Yeah, and it's funny because I've seen all this journey. When you and I met, you were a professional competitive skateboarder. And I was always ragging on you for not wearing a helmet.
Yes.
I'm like your son is going to watch you.
Fortunately, still got it. It's right here. I stayed.
And then you got into the video work with your ministry, Created to Create. And it was you and your team that ended up working with me to film Relational Bible Study.
That's right.
Which is the course that many people that are watching this have either walked through or they've heard me talk about here on Bible Talk or on the Your Bible Coach YouTube channel. And so you've been a big step of that. And then you started getting into finance, and I was like, finance. But it totally makes sense that you've just been passionate about whatever it is that God's put in as that bridge. So
came out of left field.
Yeah.
It did. But the thing about that when I think about a lot of the stories that God wanted us to know about is that he took the person that was not the expert, the person that wasn't at the top of their game at that thing. So David, right, the shepherd, what's he doing in battle against this Goliath, and you hear these stories about, like Moses, okay, he's being called, these men and these people in the Bible are being called to do these things that they're not prepared to do. God fills the gap and all the glory goes to God. I studied finances starting about 8 years ago. So I went through decades of my life not knowing what I was doing, not knowing if what I was doing was biblical, not knowing whether it was good stewardship. I was just, like many of us Americans, just going off of how you feel about it. and kind of scared of looking.
Yeah.
So especially looking back when there's decades behind you.
Anybody watching this scared to look at their finances closely?
Yeah, I know the feeling. So
Yeah. So then you started exploring finances, and you dove deep in the deep end of that pool as far as the amount of time and energy and passion you put into that. And then this book that we're about to see you hold for the first time, what caused you to think maybe I should be putting this in a book? Because I know it originally wasn't going to be a book.
Nope. Having been involved with video ministry, commonly creating videos for ministries to do a fundraiser, raise their funds for the whole year, I got to see a lot of how fundraising worked. And everybody at that fundraiser involved with this ministry wants to see that fully funded, people fed, people educated, people housed, and their needs taken care of, which is what a lot of these, nonprofit ministries are doing, serving the people. That's the bridge. But what's holding some of us back? And I realized, in the U.S., we like to spend.
Yeah.
We
Really?
are the most marketed to country in the world. Number one, yay! Are we proud of being first place in that category? Not so sure. We're marketed too heavily, and we spend, and we go into debt. It's just very, very common. There's the statistics of 78% of us may be living paycheck to paycheck. There's the statistic that 77% of us are in debt, and there's other numbers, and some of us are on average about $100,000 in debt. That's normal. Mm-hmm. That is normal. Another thing that's normal here in our country is the word crisis: retirement crisis, student loan crisis, housing crisis. All within the last 17 years or so, we've had all three crises talked about.
Right.
And but God, seeks for us to have financial peace, not financial crisis, which is the norm over here. And we're all living on the edge of the cliff financially. But I think God, has another way. And so that kind of got me thinking, okay, we want to see these ministries fully funded, but we overspend. So what can we do to take care of the overspending? You know what a hard message is don't do this. Don't spend this. Don't buy that. Hold off on this, right. Tighten your belt there. All those things, it's really hard to do. We know it's probably right to do some of those things. It is so hard to do. And something you told me was a big enough why can overcome any how. Yeah. And I realized that if you have, instead of saying no, if you had this over here that told you, you're more like an athlete with an ability. And if you use this ability while you have it, because it may diminish with age, then this is a gift. This is a talent. Mm-hmm. And this book is about that. So when I realized here's a positive way to overcome all the things we're told not to do, all the temptations, or the snares and the traps, as I call them, but actually we should be prioritizing giving to God and to the needs and actually funding our own purpose. There is money to fund our own purpose if we start at the beginning. We don't spend, and then we learn our multiplying power with resources. Then we can be funding ministry work and our purpose.
Yeah, and that's one thing I've so appreciated with you always is that so much of what you've done in your career has not been making fundraising videos, right? Your career has been in corporate America making videos, and that's where you spend your 40 hours. Yes. But then you've always had this, okay, so how do I help ministries do this? And like this book, it's not a Christian finances book. It's a book for anybody.
It is.
And you keep trying to find ways to help Christians see that if you can take these principles that are built on biblical principles and that mindset, that's going to help you fund whatever ministry you want to fund. So I love that. So let's actually show people this, and more importantly, let's let them see you be shown.
All right.
Cue up the angelic, ethereal music here.
Before I tear this open, can I talk a little bit how I learned about writing a book from you?
It's your stage, man.
Okay, so the reason why this is more important than tearing this open in front of a friend and mentor is he's a friend and a mentor that got me encouraged to write a book. And in the early stages, it is the most terrifying thing. It is, you don't know anything. There's choices aplenty, and you don't know which path to take. There's so many steps. And I took your book writing course, my finished book, and I learned in community, which is amazing. And so that is what got me started and got me encouraged to continue with this path. So when we do open this, I'm opening it with the very person that encouraged me in the beginning to write a book.
Wow. That's awesome. Yeah, when you came and said you had a book that you wanted to write, and I was saying, hey, I'm starting a session of my finished book here coming up, because I haven't even done a session every single year. Some years I've done it 2 or 3 times. Some years I haven't even done it. I'm starting a new session in January with a new group of people. Perfect. So if you're watching this and it's before the middle of January of 2025, ping me, or just go to myfinishedbook.com if you've got a book to write. But yeah, it was so cool to have you in there, and that idea of writing and processing the process of writing in community, because no one else I think there were 10 to 12 people, of the people that were in your cohort, nobody was writing a book on finances. And I don't even know that anybody was writing a book that wasn't explicitly Christian, right? I think everybody else was. And so I think that it was cool to have this group of people together, and with very different, from a college student to somebody who was just getting ready to retire, and to you who's in the thick of corporate America.
Okay, let's see what's in here.
Okay, let's make it happen.
Hey! All right.
Look at that. Financial Epiphany.
All right, looking as planned. Got that back cover. Had to get used to being on the other side of the camera.
Yes.
That's been a little something to get through.
Yeah.
So, all right. Oh, yeah. Look at that. Yep. Just as it's supposed to look.
So, I didn't tell you I was going to ask you this. What is it? I mean, I've held the first copy of my books.
You got to hold this too now.
Yeah.
Too.
So what?
This is just as much your work as mine.
I mean, as best as you can, describe this moment. What is it like? I mean, we'll talk about what's in this book next. What's it like to hold this after a many months into the putting an S on the end of the word year journey of you going from starting to look at finance 8 years ago to holding this?
There's an actual physical book here now. It was just me and my computer for years.
You need to be holding this.
Once this, and now, and that's the scary thing, is it's been my computer and me for years, and now it's time to actually get the message out. Yep. The message that for years I feel God has planted a seed in me to share, and boy, now it's time. Yep. This is pretty wild.
You're going to be spending a lot more time being the person not behind the camera.
I felt like I was finishing a race, but now I feel like I just started another one.
Yeah. Yes, you've run. You're one of those people who's run your first half marathon and realized, ooh, this is addicting. To whet people's appetite and to really help people understand how this is different than just a straight budgeting book or or an investing book or something like that. That when you talk about financial epiphany, I think this is the first financial book maybe in history with the word epiphany in the title. So what are the financial epiphanies that
absolutely
God showed you and that you're uncovering here?
Yeah, and I do want to explain that this look at this book explains the way that we're teaching in this book, that we're learning in this book. It's not traditional finance. And coming from the creative field, I always lean towards simple and creative. So I thought, okay, if this many people get finances and understand it the way we're hearing it now, which is a fraction of the people, the majority don't, not attracted to finances. We've
Right.
thought that it's boring, intimidating, and we want to be at arm's length to it. Finances can also bring about shame and guilt. Learning via textbook is one thing, but learning by experiencing an epiphany, that's what can lead to action, is having that aha moment, that very, very personal moment. And I thought that's the path that I want to take in sharing, but that's actually what I personally experienced as well. We spend 18 or so years in school, public school, college, whatever it may be, but we could totally glaze over personal finances and not learn
Which you're going to be dealing with
about
forever.
And then you deal, forever, for the rest of your life. And 40 years, certainly earning and working 90,000 hours. And the average person earns about 2 million in a lifetime, but we're not learning what to do with it.
Right.
So, okay, let's get into the 3 financial epiphanies. So these are simplified teachings, the rules of thumb. And the idea is to start out simple with very simple things that help us to succeed at finances, once again, to get away from debt and to help fund our purpose. The first financial epiphany is with a very common way of investing money. So the common tools out there are 401k for those who have it through a company, a IRA, which is a personal way you can save for retirement. There's also brokerage accounts, which are non-retirement related, that way of buying stocks and bonds. Very common ways to invest money, the multiplication of money. Once again, hearkening back to the parable of the talents, when money is being doubled in that parable, this is a way to double money. And so the first epiphany is that under common circumstances, money can double, invested money can double every 10 years. And I'm talking about a single investment, $1,000 in, can 10 years later be $2,000, right? Very simple. And now when we start to have a framework, okay, so if I invest $1,000.
And that's not with risky, crazy things or unique. That's with those common
ways of investing. So an S&P 500 index fund is a common way of investing. A target date mutual fund, where you target a date you're going to retire, and this thing automatically becomes conservative as you reach retirement. That's the rate of return, in case anyone's interested, is a 7.2% rate of return. That rate of return is what doubles money every 10 years. And it's a pretty common and achievable rate of return. Doubling of money.
Okay.
10 years, very simple, right?
Right.
Very easy to remember. Now we can start building upon that. So that's our foundation. First epiphany, money can double every 10 years. Right. And so that's our foundation. The second epiphany builds upon that. So if money can double every 10 years, then 1,000 turns into 2,000. 10 years later, it turns into 4,000. 10 years later, 8,000. 10 years later, 16,000. Now that happens to be 4 sets of 10 years is actually 40 years is the actual most common duration that we work a career for, 40 years. So now we know, if at the beginning of my career I can put in $1,000, it becomes 16,000 later. That's how money doubles when you've got continual segments of doubling years. But what we do in this book is we flip it around, because thinking about putting money into an account and growing it, nothing happens right away.
Right.
You check it the next day, it looks like nothing has happened. Nothing is gained. You check it a week, nothing has happened. Another month, nothing has happened. Even in the first year, it might seem like not much is happening. But when you look over time, there is a lot happening. So what I do in the book is flip things around. Instead of thinking, let's put in money and then 40 years later, it's 16 times more. We flip it around to say, you have a multiplying power. You have the power of 16 when you start your career. Now, when we start saying, instead of money grows into this, and you start saying you have this ability, like an athlete, is what I say. Think about it this way. NFL players, the average age is 26. And you look at professional ice skaters and those in gymnastics, and they're commonly teenage to 20-some years old. That's when they're the best at what they're doing. And it's not understood, but it's pointed out in this book that the most powerful time with multiplying our finances is actually, I say it's 22, right when we start our career. So it's right when you're in a job And when you're earning and can invest money, that's actually your strongest multiplying power time, is right during that moment. And it's not, we commonly think, when I'm older or when I make more money, that's when I'll be able to invest and save and do this growth. But it's actually when we're younger. When we get older, our eyesight's going to go and we're going to get achier with our joints.
This is getting personal now.
Yeah.
we better move on.
And the same thing is with finances, is that our ability to multiply actually diminishes over time. And that's the third epiphany, is that every 10 years, our multiplying power halves. And that creates another thing we need as human beings, which is a sense of urgency. Right. Okay, so let's act now, because 10 years from now, my multiplying power halves. When we're in our 20s, we start with the power of 16. And then when we're in our 30s, we reduce half of that to the power of 8, multiplying power of 8 with our money. And then when we're in our 40s, the power of 4, 50s, power of 2. And then we start spending our money. Mm-hmm. So, and understanding that our multiplying power halves every 10 years is a wonderful rule of thumb, simple rule of thumb, to get us to take action now and not wait.
It's huge. That idea of so much, whether it is finances or whether it's fitness or whether it's Bible reading or whatever, that positioning everything as you can't do this so that later you can do this is rarely as motivating as saying, if you do this now, it's going to enable you to do whatever. And flipping that in our mind, our mindset. I mean, even when I talk about what you helped me record, the relational Bible study, when I talk to people and they something clicks with, if we just shift our mindset from informational Bible study to relational Bible study, so many other things change. And I think when we look at, as I was reading the book and just thinking that, and I've got 3 kids, one of whom is in the early months of her first career.
There you go.
And I'm like, okay, well, I'm sending her a copy of the book because she needs to be thinking about, okay, she is literally 22.
At 22, power of 16. So every $1,000 is worth actually $16,000 later. Yeah. And by comparison, being in my 40s, I have the power of 4. I have less power to multiply these finances than your daughter right now. It's just, it sounds backwards, but it's so true. It's actually how finances work. And once we realize that, then it allows us to make all sorts of decisions and act with confidence. Yeah. I would say before I knew this, that this is how money worked, is that I acted timidly. I acted timidly because I didn't know what was going to happen. Mm-hmm. Well, when we realize what's going to happen later, boy, you can act with confidence. Acting in confidence with saving for my child's college, acting in confidence with saving for retirement and knowing this will be there, so this can fund, ministry work or our lives at this time, this or there. And you want to give along the way, and you want to balance along the way, and you're supposed to enjoy your fruits of the labor along the way as well.
Well, Scott, this has been so cool. It is so fun to see something that you've been talking about, thinking about, studying, working on, editing, re-editing, getting feedback on, making it better. Because I wasn't nice to you, your first draft.
I needed that.
And but what you've created, and when you talk about kingdom impact, I think that the impact that this is going to have, I'm talking about a multiplying power. I think there are going to be people that realize these epiphanies. It changes their finances and the way they talk about finances with their kids, which is going to change theirs. And there are going to be generations. We're going to be looking at it. That's going to be more than double, because you're going to have people that have. I'm going to talk to 3 kids about it. So for me seeing this, I'm going to be talking to 3. So that's a tripled in one generation. So who knows? Who knows?
Started already.
And so I love that you're doing it. I love that I got to be involved in it from. This is awesome, my friend.
Yeah, thank you, Keith.
And thanks for being on Bible Talk and sharing with the 3 billion people that I'm sure will watch this on YouTube next week.
Looking forward to it.
This book, Financial Epiphany, is available now, or for those of you that are watching this, like right when I release this video in late 2024. It comes out January 9th of 25. So there's some pre-orders. If you go to the website is
financialepiphany.com.
financialepiphany.com. There's some pre-order bonuses, some different things that you can get there. But grab a copy and get one. If you've got some kids that are in that high school, college age, they're about to start their new career, please give them a copy of this book. And Scott, it's been a pleasure, and it's so fun to be able to do a conversation like this that is not just from a screen. So this is fun.
In person. Love it.
All right, man.
Thanks, Keith.
Yep. And thanks everyone for joining us for Bible Talk, and we will see you next time.